Hi, everyone. Rob from Sudocs Talk, joined by my co-host Abbas. Today, we're going to try something a little bit different. This is a mini podcast, so a summary podcast of our interview with Samuel Stow. In 8 to 10 minutes, you can get an idea of what the podcast was about, and you don't have to listen to the whole hour-long episode. Sam is an engineer turned functional exercise coach and talks about how to walk more efficiently. He invented something called the functional step. And briefly, what it is engaging the gluteal muscles, so your buttock and low back muscles, to walk rather than just the quads and calves. And it turns out walking with the gluteal muscles is way more efficient. Those are the strongest muscles in the body. Sam talks about how this can really help to improve stamina and also balance. So I thought this was really a very, very insightful and just really brilliant observation that Sam made. So here's our first mini podcast, our interview with Samuel Stow. We'll have a link to the full episode as well. Thanks.
My central thesis is that the human body is a structure that it works optimally in a certain way, right? And if you're a kid, I use my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old daughters as prime examples. They're very strong and they look beautiful when they move. They're very active and they have what I would call engaged posture. So everything is sort of working in synergy together. And I think that one thing that happens over time is that as we get more involved in life and we stop being able to just do whatever we want, run around outside and play on playgrounds, we spend a lot more time sitting and we can end up getting into more of what I call a passive posture. And when you're in this passive posture, what's typically happening is your core is not working, your glutes are not engaged, and you're generally starting to train your body into a different type of posture than what we normally start with, And so when you have that, you start to get a bit compromised, because if you imagine you build up this pattern of having this passive posture and lack of awareness, and there's actually a term like gluteal amnesia, right, where you completely forget that your glutes even exist. and so then if you take someone with that situation and they go out to start to exercise again, because they've usually probably had a period of sedentary lifestyle, and then they better go and start getting fit and healthy, then the chances that they're going to be able to move well with that fully engaged active posture and the synergy of the whole structure working together is not high.
So how did you come up with this? Where did this come from? Did you try it out in running, or did you watch other people, or so engaged in the glutes? And you shared that video with me of your dad, and that kind of, I think that really resonated with me. We'll share that with our viewers because that really shows how this all works. But could you go through it and how you came up with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a process of many years of evolution. I started working on my own running form in 2009, so that's 16 years ago now. And I've been obsessed with it, because I've come from a triathlon oriented, multi-sport background. So I know how important technique and biomechanics is in terms of helping you be more efficient. Kayaking is one of my great examples. If you kayak with your arms, you're going to get tired very quickly, but if you learn to use your core and your whole body, you can be very efficient and you can actually do it for a long time. So I didn't see any reason why running would be any different, and I've always wanted to be a better runner, so I've always just been working on how can I get better, with the limited time that I have, because I work full time, I have kids and all this stuff, right? And then I like to share things, so I've always kind of been drawn to sharing and teaching others, and I've always had that opportunity. At Google, they actually have a Googler to Googler program, so you can just teach anybody who wants to learn what as long as someone wants to learn, you can teach it. So I did that, and just from there I've just always been teaching, and the process of teaching has given me more and more insights into what's needed. And yeah, my dad was kind of a really good insight for me, because he tore a calf muscle in his when he was trying to push a boat. So he was trying to push the boat and he tore his calf muscle. And the reason that happened is he was pushing through his calves because he has no glute awareness. And because that was very clear to me when I actually sat down with him, I was not sat down, but I tried to get him to do a squat and like tell me if he could feel his glutes, and he said no, I can't feel them. So that's when I knew, like, okay, well, that's the problem. We've got to get you to feel that before we can do anything else, you know?
And your posture is not only for, of course, sitting, it's for mostly for running as well. I saw your YouTube that is very nicely you balance your head and your body mostly on your glute mass there, so you can be more comfortable. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, so I'm just using active sitting as a good example because majority of us spend more time sitting than anything else. But clearly, when we're walking and running, we need to be aware of the posture and aware of like which muscles are engaged, and it becomes the sequencing and like just the whole movement pattern. There's always this kind of idea that we run the way we run, but we only run the way we run because we don't know any better. So if we learn how to move better by taking the example of using posture when we're sitting and when we're standing, then we can bring that into when we're walking and when we're running. Because really the way we move across our entire life, it's not like we have one way of moving for walking and one way of moving for running. It's all the same thing. And so if our posture and our engagement in one activity is lacking, then it's likely to be lacking in these other activities too.
Do you think this could help prevent falls, especially in the elderly?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one of my passion areas. And that's like, I've been lucky that my parents have been so game to be my test subjects, because they've been a good catalyst for me to show that this works in, their 70+ year olds. And I've had other clients come to me in their 60s and 70s. And I think that your body doesn't break as you get older. I think that the idea is that your movement patterns and your posture gets worn in and becomes more and more, I don't know what the right word is, but compromised potentially, because you have no awareness of what you're doing, and you don't know what you should be doing to make it better. And then the more that you become into this forward flexed sort of, as I said, sort of passive, unengaged posture, the more you're kind of just forward balanced, right? And there's nothing happening. So you have an unbalanced stride. So you're not upright and you don't have any hip extension. So the likelihood of you falling over is much higher. And if you think about, being engaged versus not engaged, like if you're engaged, then you can respond more quickly. It increases responsiveness. So if there was like something uneven that you were to step on, for example, or something unexpected happen, if your muscles are already all engaged, you can much more quickly adapt. Whereas if your muscles aren't engaged, then gravity is probably going to win. It's not so much posture. I mean, there is an element of posture, because if your posture, it's not posture, it's biomechanics. But if the angles of your hips and your knees are in the wrong way, then your glutes won't work very effectively, and you'll put the load more in your quads and your calves, right? And another way you can think about this is running and jumping are not really different, right? Running is basically jumping from one foot to the other. And if you get an average person to jump, just do some jumping for me, there's a very high chance that they're going to jump using their calves, right? Very low chance that they're going to jump using their glutes. But if you tell someone you've got to jump onto a 4-foot high box, most people aren't going to be able to do it. But the people who are going to be able to do it are going to be jumping using their glutes, because you can't jump that high while using your calves. Do you know what I mean? So power and efficiency are the same thing. They're just, one's high effort, one's low effort. But if you're using your glutes, then you're efficient. Whereas if you're using your calves, then you're prone to injury. And most people, if they can stop overstriding, which is what most people will start doing when they run, by basically doing an exaggerated walking motion, throwing their leg out in front and doing heavy heel striking. A lot of people go, oh, that's bad. I don't want to do that. I want to increase my cadence. So then they'll start running on the balls of their feet, because a lot of people are like, running on the balls of your feet is better. And then they're using their calves, right? And if you think about running using your calves, the load is going through your foot, your Achilles, and your calf. that's where all the load is. It's not going into where the load is best handled, which is in your core and your glutes. So that area becomes prone to injury, like I talked about, like the Coke can analogy before. And where the injury occurs is basically the weakest link in that area. So some people get lots of calf problems, some people get Achilles problems, and some people get plantar fasciitis. So they're all like the same problem from a biomechanical perspective.